yeah, we've accumulated like $200,000 on Stripe. Then, Stripe just like one morning I wake up and they send me an email. We decided to terminate your kind of like our relationship with you because we think like you're like too risky for our business model. And we will hold your money for 120 days and then we'll release it back to you.
What? All right, you're listening to the Deal Closers podcast, brought to you by websiteclosers.com. This is a show about how to build your e-commerce business to be profitable, scalable, and one day even sellable. I'm Isaac Porter, and on the show today, we have my good friend and e-commerce genius, Alex Fedotoff. He's joining us to talk about advertising and scaling e-commerce brands in a post-iOS 14 world. You know, in e-commerce, sometimes when we think we have things figured out, the goalposts really start moving on us. Maybe you have Facebook nailed down, the revenue is rolling in, and then, someone changes the algorithm and things just drop off a cliff. Google SEO strategies like link building might work one day, and then they're completely gone from the index the next day. An operating system updates, and we have a spike or a drop in traffic, and we're not really sure why. When you're relying on apps or websites that you don't own to sell your products, it can be pretty scary. So let's meet our guest, Alex Fedotoff. Starting in 2014 from his parents' apartment in the Ukraine, Alex's e-commerce journey started as a cookie salesman making $100 a month. He is now the founder of e-commerce Scaling Secrets and also the founder of several 7- and 8-figure e-commerce brands. Alex, how's it going? Great to have you on the show.
Good, my man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude. Really excited to talk with you. Look, I want to talk about iOS 15 and the post-iOS 14 world, and kind of how you're coaching your students on this, and how you're using kind of strategies yourself to continue to advertise successfully. But before we get into that, I need to know more about this cookie salesman work that you did. Walk us through the early days of your e-commerce life.
Sure, man. So yeah, like I graduated, in Ukraine. Like in Ukraine, average salary is like $300 a month, and so didn't know what I want to do with my life. I definitely didn't want to like work like a regular job because that's kind of like that didn't show any promise. But didn't have many options at that time. So yeah, cookie salesman was one of my positions. I was not very good at it. Like so, they had this like performance structure. Like you get compensated based on like number of like cookies you sell, but because I didn't like it, I wasn't passionate about it. Like I didn't sell that many. And so, yeah, typically I would make like $100 and my rent was like 200,
Oh, man.
So, and so,
Tell me the truth. Did you eat some of the cookies?
Oh, for sure. Like, I cook almost every day, I had better metabolism. I didn't get fat. Like now, if I would eat like cookies every day, I would be like, yeah.
Yeah, I've got that going on too. That's happens sometimes in our 40s, but, so look, man, you've come a world away from selling cookies. You've had huge success with your own brands, and you've taught a lot of other people how to do this. But for you and your business, what's been the scariest kind of like oh crap update? If it's from Google or Amazon or Facebook, the world is constantly changing in this area.
Because we've constantly been like relying on Facebook, pretty much like since we've been in business. Like Facebook's been like always at least 80-90% of our traffic, at times like it's like 100%. So the updates on Facebook have been like the most kind of like impactful from like negative standpoint. So whether it's like Facebook sometimes end of like quarter, or when they have like a lot of advertisers, a lot of competition, sometimes they would just like shut down the accounts or business managers or pages out of nowhere. So there's like this like big wave of like bans. So those things have been like very like impactful for us, like in a negative way. And then obviously the iOS update, which happened approximately like April, May this year, it kind of like in the short term, it kind of like impacted our business slightly for like few months. But then we have found ways to kind of like make it still work. And some of those ways, I'll share with your audience as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's really interesting. So, as I talk with founders and folks who own e-commerce businesses every day, getting ready to sell them, and the iOS update has been has really impacted in a negative way a lot of these companies that we're working with. So maybe can you just kind of give us just a 30,000-foot overview of like what was the change and kind of how did it impact Facebook that you've seen?
Yeah, so mostly it impacted on sort of like several like levels. So Facebook is pretty much like why Facebook is so powerful, why so many people are using it, because of the data Facebook accumulates, right? So when the iOS update happened, then users have the right, pretty much, they have the pop-up to choose they don't want to be tracked in certain apps, including, let's say, Facebook app. So all of their activity, where they click, what they buy is not tracked. So then that person is not necessarily in a Facebook database. So they wouldn't, like, let's say, if the person is buying a lot of clothing, let's say, so then Facebook wouldn't know the person is buying a lot of clothing because they chosen to not be tracked. Right. And so that overall like pool of buyers, potential buyers that advertisers have access to, just decreased significantly. And on the other side, Facebook is pretty much like it's overall like performance predicated by pixel and how well it's fed by the good data. So then if less people are kind of like tracked, then the less purchases are being like attributed to Facebook. So the less data is being communicated to pixel. And so pretty much the whole kind of like cycle slows down. You get like less data that you can make your decisions on. Like, for example, this audience or this ad is working. And so that has been kind of like the biggest like change. And that's kind of like what we have to work with currently.
Got it. Okay. So change is somewhat of a constant in this industry, right? I mean, these changes happen. Sure. They've happened before, they'll happen again. How can an e-commerce company keep their business, update proof, or how can you be nimble enough to pivot and kind of figure out what you need to do next?
That's a very good question. I think over dependence in general, I think kind of like this whole update just exposed businesses that have been over dependent on Facebook, including our business. We were like one of those, oh geez, we are so dependent on Facebook that any change is pretty much very like detrimental in the short term. Long term, we always figure out solutions. There's always solutions. There are always tools. We'll talk about those in a second. But in the short term, it impacts business significantly. What it has taught us, and even on the transaction that we work together, right? So we are looking into other sources of traffic. We're looking at businesses and to acquire the businesses that utilize other sources of traffic rather than just paid. Because if we have paid and then we have, let's say, like brand ambassadors, we have organic, we have influencers, we have, let's say, YouTube influencers, right? We have, let's say, Google performing on a decent level, right? So if we have all of those, then even if one platform doesn't perform, then more or less your business remains stable. And especially that's important as you have like a lot of overhead and you have to just like, you must maintain a certain sales level, profit level on a monthly basis just to break even, just to pay the bills, just to pay salaries, just to pay for all of the overhead of the business.
Sure. Yeah, there's I hear a lot of discussion when I'm talking to buyers about omni-channel distribution for e-commerce businesses. If they've got Amazon and D2C website, maybe they've got some retail, multiple, sites, maybe they're on Walmart. But I think, kind of what you're talking about sounds to me like omni-channel traffic flow, being able to drive traffic to your site from multiple sources so that any one particular source is not, not the predominant or not, you're protected and mitigating your risk by having multiple traffic sources.
For sure. It's kind of like the same as with SKUs, right? If you're over dependent like on one SKU, then if something happens with the demand for that product, or it kind of like drops in performance, then your business is very significantly, impacted. So it comes down to that same kind of like diversification and having multiple ways to drive the traffic in order to keep the business more sustainable.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's That's a really important concept, I think. So, so what are some of the tips? What have you learned? You've figured out some things since the spring when these changes went into effect. What are you doing, and what are some takeaways that our listeners could use to help their businesses if they've been impacted by these updates, or maybe they're really just dependent on one particular traffic source?
For sure. Number one is I would just like critically evaluate your business. And I think like the first step is like always awareness, and just like realize, okay, so I am over dependent on like, let's say one traffic channel or one one traffic channel or like one SKU, and then deciding to change it. I think that's like step number one, because a lot of people like they would realize they have an issue, but then it's kind of like, oh, it's okay. I mean, it's not like critical, and then they continue to do it. But the only direction it will go, it's like, yeah, I mean, D2C will become more and more competitive. Amazon will become more and more competitive. Facebook will become more and more strict. They already introducing kind of like the feedback score. Like on the Facebook page, you have the feedback score. That feedback score will be visible, like below like every ad. You will see what is the actual feedback score. So if customers see that, let's say your feedback score is like 3 out of 5, that your customer experience is not good, I mean, that will impact your conversion rates. So even thinking from that perspective, how vulnerable your business is, so you can make the necessary adjustments on the tactical level. And I mean, Facebook is my area of expertise. So on the Facebook, what we're doing is we're using like Google Analytics. We're using UTM parameters to double check and cross-check the basically the attribution from each of the ads, so that then we can compare it with Facebook dashboard and make decisions based on that. Also, we are using external tools. There are external tools like Hyros, for example, or some of our clients using like Wicked Reports, which have that extra layer of tracking. So let's say once you click on an ad, it kind of like registers with their cookie, and then it kind of like passes to their dashboard, and then their dashboard you can actually use for the for the optimization. So it gives you more kind of like visibility in terms of which ads, which creatives, which targeting audiences are actually working. So using that extra layer of,
you're doing more of the tracking yourself, or through these other software tools that are available.
You have to, right? Because Facebook is not necessary. There's also like one custom solution that we are currently testing that just allows you to populate all of the data back to the Facebook, kind of like through server to server setup. I mean, if you have like a good developer, they can do it for you. So basically server to server tracking. And so that would reflect more of the kind of like transactions that have occurred, and will attribute them to the right type of ads. On the tactical level as well, what we're doing is we keeping the structure simpler, which means we don't have that many campaigns, that many ad sets, because we don't want like that tracking to be all over the place. So even if we know, let's say like one ad set is working, and the data shows it, and then ad set only has, let's say, like 3 ads in it, then we are just like leaving it to run. We're not touching it. But instead, if we have, let's say, 20 different ads in there, then it would be a lot more difficult to track. It's a lot more, let's say each one of them like spends like $20. It's like 20 ads. So it's like $400 just spent on kind of like initial validation. And then if you have issues with tracking, then it would be like difficult to attribute a certain ad to a certain sale. And so that just messes things up. So the simpler your structure is on the campaign level, ad set level, and on the lead level, the better it is. Obviously, you have to test new creatives. This is one of the like very crucial parts. You still have to test creatives. So having like a separate campaign where you test new creatives, and what we do is we're getting new creatives for our customers or from influencers, user-generated content. We're testing it in a separate campaign. Once those are working well, then we're pushing them to the to the main campaigns where we spend the most budget.
Wow, man, you blow my mind every time you talk about this. You're like,
You blow my mind about like financial structures
Yeah.
and stuff every time I talk to you.
yeah, you're like the professor of online marketing, man. It's awesome information. Really appreciate you sharing some of those ideas with us. So tell us a little bit about e-commerce scaling secrets. What are you doing, and what are you teaching other people who are selling products online?
Sure. So initially it was just like, people reaching out to me, hey Alex, like, I have this business. Can you help me to scale it? And so I would advise people like one-on-one. Over time it turned into the community. Like, so we have for example, people who doing like 7, 8 figures in sales. So pretty much it's kind of like collaborative experience, because I think like the community part, like let's say you have like e-commerce business, right? If you're in the community with other e-commerce businesses, let's say one business owner does like D2C, another one does like Amazon, another one does retail, you can learn a lot from those people, and also seeing your business from different angles. You can see kind of like different business models. You can see how they can make it work. And anytime you have challenges, you can just reach out and get help. And so I was in many of those like communities myself. And I mean, some of them are good, some of them are not as good. And we pretty much have, I guess, the best community right now. That's what a lot of our members said for e-commerce entrepreneurs, because we have people that are not only doing good numbers, but also people that are like willing to share kind of like what's working for them. And so I'm learning a lot. I did it like, partially for selfish reasons, partially for not selfish reasons, because I want to help people. But like, even for selfish reasons, like I see so many like businesses, so many business models. I see what's working, and that also helps us to grow our own business in turn.
For sure, yeah. And just going back to the a couple of things that you said. I think in my position, I see a lot of businesses that are for sale, and I talk to literally thousands of buyers, and I know the strategies that you're talking about, diversifying the channels that are driving traffic to your website, and as well as diversifying the channels where you're able to sell your products, drive value for businesses. Buyers value that diversity and lack of concentration, because it reduces the perceived risk. Now, there are some buyers, some aggregators out there that are looking for specifically for single channel strategies to roll into a bigger platform, but the majority of buyers really see value in diversification. And I think if you're a business owner and you're thinking about maybe you've realized you've got a concentration in paid traffic from one source, I think it's worth if you have the idea of an exit in mind, it's worth investing in building out a strategy for another traffic source, because it will add value to your business and it will make it more attractive to the market. And I think what you teach people to do is how to scale their businesses. And it's not just the size of the business that'll add value if they decide they want to exit their business, but it's the structure of the business also.
Yeah,
for sure. The combination of those things really can make a company attractive for a buyer, and that can be really lucrative for the founder. So what are some of the fun stories you can share from your clients or yourself who have taken their business to the next level?
Horror story. I have some horror stories, like very like scary. I mean, like,
yeah. Tell us a horror story, but tell us a good story and a bad story.
Yeah. So let me tell you like a good story. So like, I have a client, right? And client is he's based in India. He's an amazing guy, like very smart. But I'm from Ukraine. Like if you want to sell stuff in Ukraine, like you gotta like. I had to travel to Poland, which is across the border, to just open the PayPal account. You can't get it in Ukraine. I mean, at least when I was there, like you couldn't get it, right? Like, so the barrier of entry is not like, okay, I have to figure out what to sell, but I mean, I have to figure out like even like what kind of like payment processors to use to even like collect money from people, even if I sell. So kind of like it's a more complex. So he's in India, right? And he's an amazing guy. He's doing right now like 15, like Yeah, like $15,000-$20,000 a day. And but the problem is, for example, in India, they have this tax, like weird tax, like you pay like 18% or something like tax on your ad spend. So if you're spending, let's say, $100,000 per month on ads, you're paying extra like $18,000 in ad spend. You're paying like $18,000 on top of that in tax, right? So it's like 118, not 100, which makes your margins like shrink very like significantly, right? Because a lot of businesses function like 20-30% margins.
Yeah.
And so we had this conversation with him, and like obviously he's not happy with these margins. He's doing good numbers in terms of revenue, but not his margins. And I tell him, okay, so why don't you introduce like a digital product, like a course, that has high perceived value, but at the same time it doesn't have like a lot of cost. I mean, you pay for it just once. And you see all of these companies, like even like Peloton is based on like physical products and digital, kind of like the media, right? So this is kind of like one of like where we are heading right now in a few years. Like if you don't have like media with your business, if this is just like physical product, unless you're hyper efficient, you will be struggling to compete, because that media aspect increases the retention. It adds a subscription revenue. Like even Alo, there's a company called Alo Yoga. They have this whole like training platform with like yoga classes and stuff. So you buy the apparel, but then you have all of the classes that you can actually exercise, and it's charging you on a subscription basis. So it adds another revenue stream to the business, makes the business more stable, and also adds customers that are more loyal, increases the retention. So obviously, we haven't been discussing this kind of like big scale of things, but I tell them, okay, you make some digital product, right? Like you make a digital product, make a course with high perceived value and sell it, right? As an upsell. Because he was, okay, what do I sell as an upsell to increase my profitability? Pay this like stupid tax, what do I do?
Yeah.
So create that digital product. Okay, cool. So it took him like, he just reaches out to some people in Upwork in his like niche, and like some educator. He's selling kind of like educating product for kids. And so he found someone who created a course. And so he paid them $400 to create that like course, record the videos, kind of like educational stuff. And he put it in the course, and he started selling it as an upsell for one of his products. And so he spent $400 on it. He paid like one time to the person. He already has generated $100,000 in extra revenue with that, with the product last like 2 months or so.
Wow.
So, and that obviously like has no cost. You don't have to fulfill it. It's just like automated email that sends you the access to that digital, digital product. And so that just shows that you have to constantly like evaluate your business and be like open-minded. You're not just in physical products business. You're not just like Amazon business. You're not just like retail business, right? Like you're like, whatever like business model you could integrate into it. Obviously, you have to weigh in kind of like how much effort it will take to kind of like put together, but something like a digital product. And so we were laughing about it because like, I told him, and like I told it to like probably 100 of our students, and he's the one who's actually done it, and like I was so happy because this is such a massive part of the margin, part of the profitability game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And the ability to create that kind of recurring revenue stream drives tremendous value for an exit process too. I mean, it makes the cash flow that a buyer buys much more stable. And so they're willing to pay more for it because it continues on in perpetuity. So, not only is that help his margins, but it, dramatically improves the value of his business too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Super
so
cool.
one of the horror stories I can share is like, like a lot of businesses, we're using like, we were using Stripe. It was a few years ago, and it was Q4. And we were doing like, decent numbers, like 20, 25, like $30,000 a day in sales. And we were like pushing Q4, like good time. We were like accelerating, sales. And our company at that point was established in like Singapore. And Singapore is like whatever reason, they have like 7-day payout time on kind of like on transactions. So if you generate sale today, Stripe holds it for 7 days, and then they give it to you. And so during that, like, pretty much like Q4 week, we have accumulated, like $200,000 on Stripe. And then, Stripe just like one morning I wake up after that was after like it's like, yeah, it's literally like, it was like 2017 or 18, around the same time as now. And I wake up and they send me an email. We decided to terminate your kind of like our relationship with you because, we don't think like, we think like you're like too risky for our business model. And we will hold your money for 120 days and then we'll release it back to you.
What?
Yeah. And so that's like 200. And I'm, sending emails and try to like, obviously provide like all of the proof, like transact. It's, unless you go with those situations, you got to go with a lawyer. I mean, then you have a shot, kind of like if you send a letter. But the bad thing is like, even like very clean, compliant businesses, they have issues with Stripe, with PayPal. Those businesses are very kind of like, sometimes they're very like strict, like out of nowhere, something triggers like security check and they terminate, the relationship with you. Some of our clients, let's say they have, they've had like $60,000 on PayPal, and it was and it just locked, and then PayPal says, okay, we'll not release it because you terminated some of the word. Let's say if you're drop shipping from China and you haven't disclosed it or like something like this, then they have the right to keep that money. And and so those are the type of like horror situations. So would recommend for entrepreneurs to have like a backup merchant processor, especially if your payout times are not as fast, especially if maybe like if it's like 7 days, you definitely need to have a few of the processors. So then you kind of like diversify. Let's say you send like $10,000 of volume here a day, then another 10,000 here, and so you kind of like spread it between multiple processors. So even if one goes down, you still get the payouts from other ones.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. So did you get your $200,000 back? Did you have to wait?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it was very like stressful, but I'm seeing this like last few years. This happens all over the place. And yeah, I think the key here is kind of like to look at your business more like critically. Okay, so what parts of my business have to integrate, and being part of the community, I think with other entrepreneurs helps you to kind of like get perspective, maybe from people who are doing bigger numbers than you. So then you would know about the issues you don't even have yet, but you will have, because on each stage of the scale, and as you've seen it as well, we're seeing like having conversations with so many founders on each stage of scale of the business revenue level, which is like 6, 7, 8 figure, maybe like 9-figure. You work on those like complex transactions, you see different type of challenges that business owners face. So being somehow like prepared for those helps tremendously.
Yeah, we recently recorded an episode on getting a board of advisors, and I think the concept of a community who's got experience like this is similar. Where you can draw from those experiences, and you can talk to somebody who's had an account shut down. I've heard the merchant service account shutdowns. That happens a lot to a lot of e-commerce businesses, and so it's probably in a lot of cases not a question of if, but probably when that'll happen. And then, do you have a plan that you can pivot quickly and not, not be kind of dead in the water for a period of time? So, hey man, so how can our listeners contact you if they want to be part of your e-commerce scaling secrets community, and maybe talk to you and get some more details?
Yeah, so I can be found on Instagram. Hopefully I'll get my account back. My account that got down for some reason. It's Alex Fedotoff with 3F at the end. And then it's just ecommercescalingsecrets.com. You can Google it and it will give you suggestions. Click. You can book a call with one of our team members. Like the other thing that we do, and this is, what we also talked about before, is like we are looking for businesses that we can help to grow. Like, let's say if someone joins our program and they're doing like 6-7 figures and amazing founders that know what to do, but maybe they have issues with cash flow, maybe they have issues with like just like relying on like one traffic channel, whatever the issue is, and if it's like a good fit, we might even like invest into those businesses and partner up with them to take them, let's say, from like 7-figure level to like mid 7-figure level, or even like 8-figure level, and then obviously working with professionals like yourself to help exit those businesses. So that's another thing that we've discovered, that we can add a lot of value to businesses because they already have the foundation, and we can just add the things that we've learned to their businesses to just make them exponentially more valuable.
Awesome. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Right. So you're doing direct investments with some of the companies you're working with.
First our clients pay us to join, our program, and then we pay our clients, a lot more for them to, to partner up with them. But we just see like so many amazing people inside of the community that, you see their potential, and it's kind of like over time you start seeing the talent, right? The very talented people, and that these people will be like so far ahead if they had the right resources, and if you can help them to get there, then you get part of the action. And it's the same as like Dr. Dre was believing in Eminem when no one was believing in him. I don't know if you know that story.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Skinny white kid from Detroit breaking into the rap scene in the
exactly, right? Yeah. Like, and so like he was like one white person, everyone is Afro-American, and like, but he was seeing that in him like from day one, and believed in him, and made him one of the biggest stars of all time.
And it goes to the point of you need to put a team around yourself. And what I see is that a lot of to be successful in e-commerce, you have to be able to wear a lot of hats, especially if you're starting out on your own. And so as the company grows, each one of the tasks that you do take up more time, and at some point you run out of time. And so it's like, can you identify what you're really good at and drive value, and then can you put a team around yourself to help you with all the other parts? And what I see a lot of times with founders is they're really good at one or two things, and they've become very successful. But what buyers are looking for is, can they add value in the other areas that founder wasn't as good in? And I think that's kind of what you're saying, is that you can identify these companies, and then you can help them by investing in them and maybe professionalizing their marketing operations and advertising. Awesome, man. Really appreciate you spending some time with us. For everyone listening, that was Alex Fedotoff. You can find him at really anywhere, but I would check alexfedotoff.com. He's on Instagram. He's on LinkedIn. He's got an awesome YouTube channel that you have to follow.
If you click like one of my ads as well, like, I mean, it's probably like retargeting for a long time.
Yeah. So he's an easy guy to find, but really, really great content on all of his channels. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the Deal Closers podcast, brought to you by websiteclosers.com. If you like this show, be sure to rate us, write a review, press the follow button, share it with your network. And of course, if you're looking for help selling your e-commerce business, be sure to visit websiteclosers.com. This episode was edited and produced by Earfluence. I'm Isaac Porter. Follow me on LinkedIn, and we'll see you next time on the Deal Closers podcast.